Well, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Emily Kurth, and I am the Communications Specialist here at Realityworks. I'm joined by several other Realityworks team members, including Trade Show and Events Coordinator Emily Winistorfer, Lead Designer Alan Jacobson, and Education Programs Manager Jamey McIntosh. We're all excited to share with you the results of a journey that we've never really taken before, which is taking home and using our own products, in this case, our hydroponics educational systems, to better understand the experience that educators enjoy when using these tools. Today, we're going to cover several exciting things. We'll start by going over what Realityworks is, what we do, what we create, and then we'll turn things over to Jamey, who will lead a review of really what is hydroponics. And he'll also review the 3 hydroponics educational systems that we at Realityworks offer. Then we'll turn things over to Emily and Alan, who will share more about their journey using our hydroponics educational systems to grow plants for the very first time. They'll share details about how they got started, how they kept their plants happy, and what their first harvest looked like. Then we'll turn things back to Jamey, who will share his favorite tips for teaching with hydroponics in the classroom. He'll cover key topics, including how to get students involved and how to turn mistakes into learning opportunities. We'll conclude by sharing some great free program resources that you can use in your classroom, including lesson plans, a growing guide, and a growth chart. And we'll wrap things up with a live Q&A session. That said, just a few quick housekeeping items to address. We are recording today's presentation, and all attendees will receive a copy of the recording. We'll also email a printable certificate of completion that you can use for professional development references following the presentation. And as we said, we will end with a live Q&A session, although you can feel free to ask questions anytime using the chat feature on your screen. Just know that we'll get those addressed at the very end of the presentation. With that, let's get started. So what is Realityworks? Who are we? We are an employee-owned company based in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, that creates experiential learning tools for teaching in-demand skills. We actually got our start over 20 years ago when former NASA engineer Rick Jamey created the very first RealCare baby infant simulator, and then went on to found the company that's now Realityworks. Today, our learning solutions combine curriculum with that hands-on learning, as well as student activities and assessments. You'll find our solutions in middle schools and secondary schools and colleges around the world and the country. In fact, we're in more than 70% of US school districts and programs in 90 countries around the world. And our learning aids address a whole variety of career and technical education pathways, including health and human services, health sciences, trade skills, agriculture, and soft skills. Whether we're creating a better way to teach students how to take blood pressure, care for calves, learn to weld, or even grow plants hydroponically, we really strive to create tools that are easy to implement into programs and that offer plenty of customer support. And that goal is actually where we got the idea to test our own hydroponic systems. We figured by improving our understanding of our own tools, we'll have a better understanding of what teachers need to succeed. So as we said before we dive into Emily and Alan's experience, we're going to turn the presentation over to Realityworks Education Programs Manager Jamey McIntosh to review what hydroponics is. Jamey is a former educator who has spent years talking to teachers about student engagement and skills development. And he'll not only review what hydroponics is, but he'll also go over why hydroponics presents such stellar opportunities for student engagement in class. And he'll review the 3 hydroponic systems that we offer.
So one of the questions that really comes up is why hydroponics? Why is this something that we should do? And what is it? So let's start with the what. What is hydroponics? Is basically what hydroponics is growing different plants or produce in water, hydro, instead of in soil. And so, one of the questions is, why would you do that? What would the benefit be from coming to that? And so talking through this a little bit, one of the things that is, it's a great learning opportunity within schools, and being able to share this with your students and learn about the different opportunities that are there. So there's a lot of career exploration of hydroponics and what types of growing you can do, and then what kind of careers that might lead to. Another big one here is STEM, allowing students to get different types of knowledge and learning from different, there's scientific of how it grows, to technology that using, engineering of how hydroponics works, and then the math. There's a lot of different math aspects of the grow season and how much you're growing and the nutrient measurements in it. So there's a lot of help in that world too. Another big thing that we're hearing more and more in this world, in our world, is sustainability. How do we sustain when we have things like floods and droughts and climate change and things of that nature? How do we bring sustainable growth and growing opportunities to our plants and what we're going to eat? And so working through and using hydroponics can help in that world. Um, Again, another piece of the puzzle is the farm to table world. It's something where people want to know what they're growing and how they're growing and the nutrients that comes out of this and how it can help us and be helpful to our health. All of these bring about different learning engagements. And so really, talking about hydroponics, people will, question what is it and how does it work? And then what are the different types of hydroponic systems as well? So really, there are, I would say, 4 types of hydroponic system. We have 6 listed here, as 2 of them kind of are offshoots of hydroponics, but are still in that world. We're really going to focus and see on 4 of them, which is our deep water culture, ebb and flow, drip system, and the NTF system here. And so as we go through this, we're going to start with our deep water culture. And again, like I said, what is hydroponics? Hydroponics is really that ability to grow plants or produce with water instead of soil. And so you see with our deep water culture, it's like if you were going to put your plant into the soil, but in this case, it's into water. And the water has nutrients, it has oxygen being pumped in and allowing that plant to really grow and its roots to grow by using water versus soil. The deep water culture allows those plants to grow deep into the basin there or the tank that it's in, and really to grow based off getting that nutrients from the water below and also from the nutrients that you add to that water. Another great type is the ebb and flow or the flood and drain system. And the ebb and flow system here really allows you to, you bring water up. It has nutrients in it by way of a water pump. It then goes and it floods through or it flows by and it goes by the plant root system, and then it drains back down into the water below. As you need, you then can continue to cycle that, and then you add nutrients as the plants kind of grab that nutrients as it's flowing by. Another option is our drip system here. And the drip system is the idea that, basically you kind of, instead of having, you have water below, but you have water coming and nutrients coming from above, and it drips down onto the plant rather than coming in the roots soaking up. It's coming down from the top, dripping onto the plant, and then the roots will grab that nutrients and the water needed before it goes and drains down into the tank below. And then we also have a nitrate film technique, which is really kind of bringing some of the other ones that we've talked about, and we show the drip system next to it here, kind of bringing those into where what's really happening is that it's this flow downward, all right, and kind of moving down the ramp and draining into the bath. Well, the nutrients is up top. As it drains and as it goes, the plants grab that nutrients, and then kind of the unnutrient system, water that's been kind of, the nutrients have been taken out from the plants, goes back down, and then you would add more nutrients to the lower system there. So the NTF system is another option. Now, those are kind of our 4 main ones. 2 others that are also included, and other ways to grow is aeroponics. And the best way I can think of that is it's kind of how a lot of times grocery stores, they will mist their produce in a grocery store. Aeroponics kind of has that same idea, is using less water sometimes, you're able to mist the roots or the top of the plant. That plant then gains that nutrients as needed. As the nutrients is taken up by the plant, you then can mist again and do that every so often, giving the water or the plant the needed water and nutrients as needed, trying to then again be sustainable in that way. Another option is aquaponics. This then again brings hydroponics and it correlates it with fish. So that's where you get the aquaponics here. In this case, the fish are the nutrient solution or helping to create the nutrient solution for the plants. Fish have their waste. The waste has nutrients in it that the plant will use. So the plants will suck up that nutrients from the waste of the fish, allowing the fish to stay alive in swimming below or in the tank. And then the plant gets the nutrients from it, helping the plant to survive, and then the water is cleaned, helping the fish to survive. Again, in this case, you're then getting two different sources in that world for doing this. Now, all these types of systems really bring in the question of, okay, why again, and how is best to use, and some key reasons for hydroponics. So, there's a lot of different things that have been talked about and has been shown through research where, you can save space, the grow times are quicker, it can help increase food security, and you can use less water and eliminate other types of byproducts by growing hydroponically. So some of the things that kind of just to talk through this is a limited space. In a lot of locations, not only space, but it's also where, okay, we're doing a lot of other types of learning. So how do I include this in a classroom? How do I include this in a greenhouse? And in this case, the systems that you can use can grow upwards. And so a lot of times there's not enough space in an area. And so by growing vertical instead of horizontal, it can help with limited space. It's also something that can help with really clean and efficient in the sense of hydroponic farming is a clean way of doing that. You have nutrients, but you don't have the need for large plots of land. You don't have the environmental issues in the sense of you need to have certain temperatures. You can do that in your system, man-made in the sense of your bringing in your nutrients, bringing in your light source, your grow lights, having fans to mimic that the wind. Those are things that can help clean and also be efficient. A lot of times your vegetables and studies have shown and how we grow them, they grow quicker because you can have light sources on for longer periods of time for different opportunities. And that comes in with solving some of this food shortage or growing issues. Again, if you're in Arizona, if you're in Alaska, you can grow hydroponically all year long. In certain times of the year, in desert conditions or in winter cold conditions, you can't always grow outdoors. This is where the environment does not dictate what you can grow anymore. You can grow in a basement that has no windows because you have your grow lights, you have your wind and your air source, you have your nutrients, allowing you to, in the middle of winter or the middle of summer, being able to grow where before you may not have been able to. And then again, I talked about this briefly, but it helps increase different rates and times to harvest. Nutrients and water allow you to be able to decide how much you're getting. If the plants need more, you can give them more when you need it, not hoping that it will rain at some point or hoping that there's enough nutrients in the soil. In this case, you can add and do what you need as you need to, which allows then that growing time to kind of decrease and the abundance to increase. And then finally here, this is a great way for you to help your students learn and experiment with new ways to grow plants. The whole piece of this is that with the ability to grow anywhere, anytime, students can try, make mistakes, and do again. Again, allowing that ability to challenge them with new different options and opportunities to try to see how they did and what they can do to grow faster, better products in the making. So if you're interested in getting started with this, we have a lot of different opportunities for you through Realityworks. We have different hydroponic systems. They all help you to get started, giving you what you need, how to get growing, and then charts on as you're doing it, what is those needs that you have and how to best go about trying to grow different types of plants. Our systems include our plant lab educational system. This is kind of our system where it has 3 different shelves, and each shelf has its own water basin or tank. So you can put different amounts of nutrients and different types of plants on each shelf, allowing you to grow different things in every single shelf, and allowing you to have more options in that world. Now, we also have a plant producer, because a lot of times, especially in schools, you may want to produce a lot of one thing. And so in this case, you have a tank at the bottom. That tank is then running the nutrients to all 3 levels, and it allows you to grow, again, different things, or you can grow a lot of the same thing. Now, in this case, this also has ability to change the timers, change the lights, the time of lights are on, time of the fans are on, and checking different variables for you in the plant producer. And lastly, we have our mini hydroponic system. There's 5 different mini hydroponic systems here that allow you to grow in your classroom, have students grow their own different produce or plants. And in this case, it gives different types of growing options. So we have the ebb and flow, we have the deep water culture, and also microgreens can be grown in these 3 systems. So really, in this case, it allows you to be able to grow different types of produce based on what your needs are. So we have 3 different options for you based on what you're looking for and what you want your students to be able to grow. All of this then includes different types of curriculum, all focusing on hydroponics. So we include PowerPoint slides, activities, different types of assessments, helping you get started working on and all the different types of guides you need to be successful in growing hydroponics. So all of this is there for you as you need it to grow successfully.
Thank you, Jamey. Next, we will turn the presentation over to Emily and Alan. Emily is our trade show and events coordinator, and she used our plant lab educational hydroponic system to grow lettuce, kale, and a few other greens. She maintained the system at our corporate headquarters while working full-time from home. So let's turn things over to Emily and hear a little bit more about her journey.
How did you get started? When we started growing hydroponically, it was very new to me. I was used to growing in soil. It was a little bit intimidating. And the only thing that we had were our units and the quick start guide. The quick start guide also was super helpful because not only did it tell me what we needed, it also told me step by step how to grow hydroponically, which made it a lot less intimidating. So if you are a teacher that has never done this before, we have provided you with a very detailed quick start guide as well as resources on our webinar to get you started growing hydroponically, as well as help you throughout the whole growing process. So things that we needed for our unit were we needed to get seeds, we needed nutrients, we needed an EC and a pH tester. I ordered all of our nutrients as well as our testers all on Amazon. And then for our seeds, some of the seeds came from our personal gardens, and then some I went and I purchased at a local store. Once we got everything we needed, we started germinating and everything kind of took off from there. What did I do to keep my plants happy? So I would say that I kept my plants happy by providing them with the basic needs of growing, which is sunlight, proper temperature, moisture, air, and nutrients. The lab unit itself, it automatically has the lights turn on and it has the fans that'll cycle through it. And then it also cycles the water underneath. So it keeps the water at room temperature and also keeps those nutrients cycling. So the unit does a portion of it. And then I kept them happy by checking the pH and the EC and adding water when it got low. I work from home and my unit was located at the home office. So I only checked my plants on Tuesdays and Fridays. As they started getting closer to harvesting, I needed to add more water because they were sucking up more water. And I have awesome coworkers that when I wasn't in the office and if my lab unit would start beeping, which meant that the water was low, they went and they took the quick start guide and they were able to figure out how many nutrients to add and filled the tank up until I was able to come into the office. We know as teachers that some things might come up. You might be sick one day or your unit's not in your classroom. So really, you can have your colleagues or your students just listen for that beep. If they hear it, they would just have to check and see which tank is low, figure out how many nutrients to add the water, and that would be able to help you out until you're able to care for your plants again. How did harvest go? Harvesting actually crept up on me very fast because the plants grew so rapidly. After germinating, it was about 3 weeks and I was harvesting lettuce because lettuce grew so quickly. So I actually ended up harvesting my lettuce twice and my kale once. With my lettuce, I of course made a salad with that, a couple different salads with that because there was so much. With kale, I did get a little bit more creative. I made a kicked up kale soup, I made kale chips, and I made a green kale smoothie. Then there was so much left over that I had to give some to my coworkers as well as my friends and family. So if this is something that you are interested in implementing into your classroom, you can have your students grow their own vegetables. And then once it comes to harvest, you can have a harvest celebration where everybody tries the vegetables, or you can send the vegetables home and have your students try some fun new recipes. You do get quite a lot out of a harvest, so there are endless possibilities of what you can do once you're ready to harvest hydroponically.
Thank you, Emily. Next, we will hear from Alan. Alan is our lead designer, and he used our plant mini educational hydroponic system to grow basil, dill, and other herbs. He maintained the system at his house while working full-time from home.
Hey, everybody. To answer these few questions that we've set up for this webinar, how did I get started? Getting started with the mini was pretty straightforward. I was a little intimidated by it, but when we started the seeds themselves, Em and I were in the office. We relied heavily on the Quick Start guide, and we planted the seeds together, and then she took over the germination process. She had it in a germination tray, most of the seeds, all the seeds, and then we had them placed in the lab unit, and she took on the task of keeping the seeds, wet with a spray bottle. And then once I took on the seeds after they had sprouted, then I did the water, nutrients, and planting them in the mini unit. But using the Quick Start guide and the curriculum, the support materials, it's pretty straightforward for teachers and students. I wouldn't be intimidated at all by it if I did it again. Real straightforward. What did I do to keep the plants happy? I didn't. I guess I do sing to the plants a little bit, but besides that, just checking the nutrients, the EC and the pH levels, and then making sure the water level is high enough. One weekend I did leave. Kim and I, my wife and I, left for the weekend, and there was a scummy, after the plants had grown up quite high, there was a little scummy line on the inside of the tank. You can see the water level. Well, that scummy line, it looked like the water line, so we left. I thought the tank was full, and when we came back, the unit was low on water. But it's fine because the units, they're set up so if the water does drop below a certain level, it does tell you. So keeping enough water in there is straightforward. Just so then it comes down to just checking the nutrients, making sure there's enough nutrients in the water, and then checking those other levels like pH and EC. Lastly, how did the harvest go? Well, I think it's cool. If I would do it again, I would kind of plan out, what do I want to grow? For teachers and students, you might want to come up with a healthy recipe that is kind of laid out as far as what you're growing. What are you going to use these plants for? Knowing what you're growing and knowing what you're going to cook at the end. What we did harvest, what I harvested here, was dill and lemon basil. When I did harvest, my wife and I, we made pickled beets with the dill, and then with the basil, lemon basil, we made pesto, and then we put that on a pizza. And I don't know if I would recommend lemon basil pesto on a pizza. I don't think I would. It was fine. It wasn't too bad, but I'm used to just regular basil in my pesto. I did have some failures with the oregano, so I transplanted and put in new lettuces and kale. And then my rosemary was lagging behind. I think it's probably ready to harvest now, but I didn't harvest any rosemary there. So all in all, coming up with that menu for teachers and students, and then planting something that you want to eat. First of all, experimenting with growing different things, but coming up with that menu. What are you gonna use this stuff for when it's time to harvest? But all in all, it was a lot of fun.
Oh, thank you both, Emily and Alan. At this point, we're going to hear from Jamey once more. Jamey is going to share a few of his favorite tips for teaching with hydroponics, especially if you find yourself in Emily and Alan's shoes. Say you've successfully started your plants and you're ready to challenge your students with some awesome active learning experiences. To help us answer this big question, how do you teach with hydroponics? We asked Jamey to help us out by answering 3 specific questions. We asked him, how can teachers get their students involved with these systems? How can teachers turn mistakes or unexpected issues into learning opportunities? And how can teachers incorporate our hydroponics lesson plans and activities into their curriculum? Here's what he told us.
This is a great point in time to start talking about, different ways to use hydroponics in the classroom. You have some plants that have been harvested. You have some plants that are still in the kind of middle of the road stage. And so, the first thing about this is a great place to get these units seeable. Make sure that students can see them. Get them out in the hallway, plug them in there, have them on tables where students can see. It will draw them in and get that interest point. That's going to be important for students to kind of understand what's going on. That's where a lot of questions will come in. This is that great time to start asking a lot of questions to your students. Really dig into, okay, did this go well? What were the problems? What were the issues? Get them start thinking and reflecting. Reflecting is always important and always good to say, what can I do better next time? Also ask, what were your successes? What were the things that you did really well that next time you're going to emulate and that you want to do more of? The other piece of this is, and you can see, is there's different types of plants growing here. We have different plants growing in each of the different systems. That's a great place to say, okay, now that it's growing, would you change them out? Do you want to do something different? As we grow the plants, we want to grow their minds too. Get them thinking about other things that they could do. Hey, this didn't work well. I want to try a different vegetable or a different type of maybe growing. Maybe I want to, do a carrot and have it grow down. And what does that do versus growing up above the water? So there's a lot of different things you can start looking at, but now's the time, as they see it, as they have started that growing, to really start to engage and get them thinking about what's next. How do I now grow something new? This is the place where, as you have it here, we're always talking about hands-on learning. This is that place for you to start saying, yeah, what are some other things that you can do in that world? So one of the things with these systems that we have really worked on and engineered for is trying to get it user-friendly for everyone. No matter if you've never used it before yourself, if you've never done hydroponics, or you have hydroponics already in your greenhouse, in your classroom, this is a user-friendly, all of our systems are user-friendly. What that means is we want you to be successful in growing different things that you grow. So with very little interaction, making sure the water levels are good, making sure the nutrients are right. Besides that, the systems really work on their own. They have times that they can do it themselves. They have the ability to do that on their own. So with these systems, it's very easy to be able to do the work yourself and have your students help you. One of the great things about this is if you're not the best at this, that doesn't matter, because part of failure is part of the learning process. Have students try and say, oh, that didn't work. Now let's go figure out why it didn't work. Now, the other great thing is let your students be as much as the teacher as you are. And what I mean by that is sometimes it's better to say, students, you go figure this out rather than putting it on yourself. We have the guides. We have the ability for students to be able to find and chart what type of plants do we use, when we should be putting nutrients in, how much, all those things are there for you. Now, the great thing about all of our hydroponic systems is that curriculum comes with it. And when we say curriculum comes with it, it's not just PowerPoint slides and worksheets and activities. It is also our instructor guides. It's our quick start guides. It's our charts that tell you what are the different types of plants to grow,
how long you should be, looking before harvest, how long to germinate. We give a ton of information for students to really kind of look and say, hey, how many days do I want to be growing this before I harvest it? You can look and say, and chart out and say, hey, we need 45 days, we need 60 days, we need 90 days. And you can start looking at different types of plants that you would then want to grow in that sense. And we have charts to show you what are some of the easier plants to grow. If you're, first time trying, use our curriculum to teach you and your students how not to kill the plants. That could be a great success for you. For some of you who said, okay, now we're on to the next thing. Hey, what are the different difficulty types of plants that we want to try? Let's challenge our students to see if they grow or if they don't grow. And you try some more difficult plants that are going to take longer time or a little bit more finicky in their growing process. And so with our curriculum, you're able to then actually go back and look at the logs that you've done. And what would you change? What would you do differently? How much nutrients you would provide? How much, water and sunlight? And then start doing some experiments with those. You can use that curriculum to say, okay, here's what the textbook says. Do we change it? Do we switch it up? What happens when you get more light or more wind or more nutrients? What happens when you get less? And start doing some experiments with that as well, which our curriculum helps you really to understand what the standards are, how to help you grow, but then also you can kind of go off path and do some of your own stuff with it as well.
Awesome stuff. Thanks, Jamey. Okay, now that we've hit you with all of this great information on hydroponics, what do you do now? Well, we suggest exploring these free resources. Visit our hydroponics implementation page, the link to which we will share in our post-webinar emails. From that page, you can access a variety of amazing free resources, including a free How to Grow guide that details the benefits of hydroponics, reviews how systems work, and also goes over what you need to start growing fresh, healthy food in your classroom. And really a big bonus of this guide is that it also includes a free poster pictured on your screen right now that addresses the impact of classroom gardens. You can also download a free hydroponic system overview, which is a really great resource if you're interested in getting one of our systems for your classroom. This overview will really review what makes our systems unique and help you select the best one for your program. Finally, you can print out a copy of your own daily, weekly hydroponics educational systems chart, which we created about halfway through our own process of testing these systems. And this really is intended to give you a detailed, organized way to track your plant growth, your nutrient maintenance, and any other details you need for either you or a group of your students to take charge of your systems. And you'll find other resources on that hydroponics implementation page as well, like a free program evaluation that connects you with your local account manager to review options. You'll be able to explore other resources and tools and such. So highly recommend you check that out. At this time, we are going to wrap up our presentation with any questions. So if you have a moment, if you have any questions about any of the information that you just saw and heard, please feel free to type it into the chat feature on your screen. And we've got a whole panel of experts, myself, Jamey, of course, and Emily and Alan to answer any questions you may have.